I rise to speak in relation to the Ombudsman and other legislation amendment bill. This bill will amend the Ombudsman Act, the Community Services Complaints Reviews and Monitoring Act, and repeal the Ombudsman Regulation of 2016. And these are all amendments requested by the New South Wales Ombudsman, and I agree with the words of the Honourable John Graham in the second reading speech. It's good government to consult with the Ombudsman to ensure that that office is an effective, strong and independent integrity agency. And we also agree that it is critical that our integrity agencies are equipped with appropriate legislative frameworks which enable the efficient and effective exercise of their principal functions. Much of this bill is uncontroversial, and I will only deal with it briefly. It will permit the Ombudsman to make preliminary inquiries to determine whether or not jurisdiction exists in relation to particular conduct and the exercise of particular functions. This will enhance the effective and efficient execution of the Ombudsman's responsibilities in cases where an investigation cannot be pursued or is deemed unnecessary, and any information revealed to the Ombudsman during those preliminary inquiries would be safeguarded by the Ombudsman's statutory confidentiality duties, ensuring the protection of disclosed information. This is a sensible amendment, it's an efficient amendment, and we're happy to support it. The bill will also extend the power of the Ombudsman to make copies of any documents which it inspects and create an express statutory duty for a public authority to cooperate with the Ombudsman and, if asked, assist the Ombudsman to exercise its powers. This is consistent with recommendations from the Commonwealth Royal Commission into the Robo-Debt scheme, and it is important that as legislators we learn from mistakes and refine our legislation to ensure that it is working as intended and in the best possible way. The bill also provides an express statutory power to provide education and training services and charge reasonable fees for the provision of those services. Education and training have long been viewed as essential to the Ombudsman's role of capacity building, proactively improving complaint handling and promoting good administrative conduct in the public sector. We have no issues with any of these provisions. And the bill makes some other consequential amendments which we are in general happy to support. However, there are two issues with this bill which the opposition will be seeking to amend. The first is the provision in the bill to repeal the current Section 31Z, which prohibits the disclosure of information tending to identify a person as a protected person. A protected person includes a person who has made a complaint to the Ombudsman, any public official providing information or documents on behalf of an agency about a complaint, and any other person assisting the Ombudsman in some way. Section 31Z was introduced by the Coalition in 2002 as part of the Public Interest Disclosures Act, 2022, I apologise. The Ombudsman has formed the view that this provision imposes an unnecessary administrative burden and should be removed. As I observed earlier, it is good governance to consult with bodies such as the Ombudsman to ensure the best interaction between legislation. However, in this instance, no other stakeholders appear to have been consulted, and that is poor governance. Furthermore, it is not the role of government simply to remove apparent administrative burdens without examining the reasons for that burden. In fact, no other reasons have been given for this change except that it was requested by the Ombudsman. So we will be seeking an amendment to oppose this change. The reasons for its inclusion in 2022 remain valid today. We do not support repealing protections for people who give the Ombudsman information simply because it creates work for the Ombudsman. The second issue with which the opposition has issues is in relation to changes in the obligation on the Ombudsman to monitor and assess Aboriginal programs under Part 3B of the Act. Instead, under this bill, the Ombudsman will now have a discretion to determine if and when and which programs are to be monitored. The government's argument for this change is that it is, quote, a step forward in the independence of the Ombudsman, end quote, and that it is consistent with the view of Parliament when Part 3B was introduced in 2014, but, quote, makes it real in the modern circumstances, end quote. However, we disagree that this change is consistent with the view of Parliament. And I quote from the second reading speech given by the Minister for Citizens and Communities and Minister for Aboriginal Affairs in 2014, when talking about the introduction of Part 3B and the monitoring that would be part of Part 3B, he said, quote, "The idea for this initiative came from Aboriginal community leaders and demonstrates the commitment of the government to listen to communities and to work in genuine partnership with them to implement much-needed reform. This is an Australian first. No previous state or federal government has opened itself up to this level of independent scrutiny of its Aboriginal programs." In 3 recent independent reports, both the New South Wales Auditor-General and the New South Wales Ombudsman have called on government to have greater accountability in the design and delivery of programs and services for Aboriginal people. In May 2011, the Auditor-General stated in his report on the previous Labor government's Aboriginal Affairs 2 Ways Together program that it has not delivered the improvement in overall outcomes for Aboriginal people that was intended. The Auditor-General recommended that an independent auditor undertake an annual review of government programs and services delivered to Aboriginal people to build an evidence base of what works in Aboriginal affairs and to appoint an independent advisor as a champion for Aboriginal people in New South Wales, end quote. And that champion that was appointed was the Deputy Ombudsman as part of the scheme in Part 3B. These same concerns hold in 2024 as strongly as they did 10 years ago in 2014. It does not appear that the government has properly consulted or addressed this issue, and so we will be moving an amendment which maintains the Ombudsman's obligation for oversight. Subject to these amendments, the opposition is happy to support this bill.
Thank you. Further speakers? Ms Kate Fairman?